All right, I'd like you to take a look at this logo here. There is a there's a greater understanding in the fullness of this understanding here that's going to go beyond what I just simply explained to you here at first. It's going to give you an enhanced perspective of how this deception is being fostered concerning Enki, which is really the representation of their God, their prince, their Messiah. So, real quick, how this kind of came to me. I was in the grocery store the other day, and this young man, probably about 10 years old, walks into the foyer of the grocery store. And when he did, he just stood there and faced me directly. I was about maybe 10, 15 feet away in line, and he actually just stared directly at me. Now, the young man was waiting for his mother to come in behind him, and he had just entered the grocery store ahead of her. But for whatever reason, he stood in direct line of my view and faced me with this huge logo on his brand new t-shirt. And of course, I kind of stood there just shaking my head and kind of chuckled to myself as I read the logo off. And you're looking at it. Basically, the logo is what we see right here. Nike, it's good to be the king. The first thing that you got to really understand here is that Nike is the world's biggest commercial sports corporation. And I stress the word commercial in reference to commercialism, in reference to commercial Babylon, which is in direct reference to the serpent known as the Nahesh. And Enki is the Nahesh. If you remember just briefly here about this division of knowledge in Genesis, when these sons of God, the fallen, took unto themselves the daughters of men, it was these daughters that they taught like heifers, like we saw in Hosea and other places in the Bibles, the cows. And if you see in the book of Enoch, it will explain it more thoroughly that these women specifically were taught this occultic knowledge. And if you understand the ancient Sumerian accounts, from these women, the kings had been born that were set to rule over mankind. This is how this ancient serpent god has secured a lineage that he could produce as the Elites. These Elites are synonymous with what we know of as the 10 tribes of Israel, of which now we see are still continually carrying on this great work. So if this serpent, Enki, the Nahesh, is supposed to be this incredible, awesome god that's trying to get rid of all this bad commercialism on the planet, this bad materialism, all this bad stuff that's happening to man, then why does the world's largest commercial sports corporation, in other words, the elite, and I'd urge you to check into the ownership of Nike. And then I would urge you to check into some of their sordid practices that they uphold using questionable labor in foreign countries, so that you can see that really this is still all about the same thing: control, greed, over control of the masses into the hands of just a select few. It's all encompassed in the same thing. So before we go any further, let's just go ahead and really see what this logo is telling us, and just keep in mind that this huge commercial corporation, which really behind itself is the representation of ecclesiastical Babylon, and that this is their message that they're sending forth through their material medium of this advertising. It says, Nike, it's good to be the king. First off, Nike, not only is it an ancient goddess, which is directly what this name is pulled from, but it's also the goddess of war. It's the goddess of victory. And you got to realize there's this war that is taking place right now. And they believe that they're going to be victorious. We see that in their logo, they're displaying to us their occultic message right in plain view that Enki, it's good to be the king. And as I said, Nike is an anagram for Enki, plain and simple. And that fulfills once again the female and the male, or the black and the white, the water and the fire. It fulfills this duality version. Now it's going to fulfill it much more stronger, just like when we showed you in the gold video about the Sinai Peninsula and the Red Sea. Simultaneously was the serpent opening its mouth, and at the same time the bunny with the ears, which represents the playboy, which represents what we know of as females being seen as objects of lust, even further connected to the ancient fertility goddess associated with Ishtar, who was simultaneously at the same time the whore. We know that this reflects back with ancient Israel, who is termed as this mother, which was to produce the true spiritual children of this world, but because she's become adulterous and has taken unto herself another husband, this father-in-law, and we know that that's further representative of Yahweh, but hiding behind this law god Yahweh, the father-in-law, is the representation of the Nahesh Enki. So Yahweh is not the Nahesh. Yahweh is an evolutionary conglomeration of many ideas and different cultural adaptions of deity that the Hebrews have added into their theology as they've been held captive in various lands throughout Mesopotamia. As you know, that the line of Abraham comes directly out of Ur, Chaldea, and then the lineage of Jacob directly arises out of Egypt. So it's not a far stretch to begin to understand how all of this is so overlayered in its confusion to where many people can't fully grasp what's happening. So you really need to think about this for a moment as I'm showing you that this huge commercial corporation is promoting Enki as this king. Because at this time, if there's a war going on, symbolized by this Nike goddess of victory and war, they're saying that as the result of this war, that he will be lifted as the king. Well, you know, he's just the prince now. He's the fallen prince, but he is seeking to get his kingdom. And what signifies him getting his kingdom is when he enters into this material kingdom itself, of which in reality is our domain. It's our dominion. So it's a war against mankind who has been promised the dominion of the earth by the Father himself. So even further into this signia, you should understand it as saying, Enki, it's good to be the king. Now, let's take a look at the Nike swoosh, and let's see this perfectly fulfill the fractal in every possible way imaginable. This represents that falling star from heaven, right? Just like we see depicted and associated with these fallen beings. Just as Jesus Christ himself has described them, which gives us absolute credibility for the true vision of Jesus as he has warned and projected this truth for that this representation of this falling star represents their original fall to earth. And at the same time, it represents this dramatic reenactment of the millstone, which will come streaking and falling down to, guess what? New York City. That city of that commercialism, which was the thing that tempted and induced these ancient sons of God. We know that women like jewelry still to this day, and it's the same depiction that you see on the macro level as you see this feminine type philosophy that's been applied to our civilization has become adulterous, tempted, and now self-righteously, materially obsessed. And this is the way that the confusion is now confounded upon us as we live within this system. This materialism has now been passed on to us. So the temptation really is displayed as you understand the ancient peoples, the ancient progeny of men, the ancient daughters of men have been duped. They've been duped, and then the deception has been covered up with this type of propaganda, which is the double. So you can see these ancient goddesses not only depicted as the god of war, but at the same time the god of fertility, the god of death, the god of life, god of dark, the god of light. There's a duality there. This duality stems from the deception of them having to cover up the first understanding of this sacred feminine, of which represents these early daughters of men as whores that have taken unto themselves a new husband, which was not of the original creation, in other words, mankind itself. And then they take unto themselves these Nephilims, or these ancient sons of God, to produce the Nephilims. And then this further stems itself up into the projection of the world reality and world history. As we see now, the philosophy is spread in total to include all of Israel as the woman that has now taken unto herself this new husband in the representation of Yahweh, but really hiding behind all that is the representation of Enki. So the plan is all right here. How they're going to do it, Enki's deception with the commercialism, that he's not separate from it, that he's actually the creator of it. He's actually the foster of it, and he uses it as the temptation to seduce so that he can secure his dominion. He's only about himself. He is about no one else. And many of you guys think that you want this godlike self-image of yourself. How can any of you believe that you're godlike when you lie all the time, when you accuse, bicker, and slander, and stalk incessantly, obsessively? That's not godlike at all. It's the exact opposite of it. And all of you are fulfilling, all of you stalkers and you obsessive slanderers, this huge pack of wolves here that's not just on this channel, it's all over YouTube. All of you guys are fulfilling that you have no true spirit understanding, that you've got no true love in your heart, that you have the spirit of the accuser, which represents Satan. Plain and simple. So we have the falling star, which is the original fall, and then now we have the millstone, which signifies the ending of this fall, which will signify the destruction of this world reality construct that we ourselves are all bound in. They no longer need this system because the system has secured what they've wanted. Now they're going to rid the system itself and then all of the people that they have chained to it. That's the whole program. That's the whole program. So Nike and Enki are polarity versions of the same thing. It's literally telling you right before your eyes, Enki, it's good to be the king. And then Nike symbolizes victory. So this Enki is symbolizing his victory, that he has overcome the seal, that he has overcome the dominion of mankind itself, and that he believes himself to be this king, or at least this corporation is projecting him as this coming king. Notice that it's not projecting Obama, it's not projecting the Pope, it's projecting an ancient, fallen spirit being with real malice and contempt for mankind, which these people are unable to divide because supposedly he offers this knowledge. But if you read in the book of Enoch, the knowledge that he offers is a reprobate mystery. And this signifies further that it was actually something that was offered before its time. Meaning that eventually, throughout the evolutionary course of mankind, as mankind grew in spirit maturity, not temptation, not vanity, not ego, not pride, that mankind would develop these spiritual prerogatives that so many people believe have been taken from them. So by offering this reprobate mystery to the daughters of men a little early, in other words, it's the equivalent of handing a power tool, which could be used for good and creation, but it's the equivalent of handing a sharp-bladed power tool to a child. The child's not going to be able to create anything of lasting beauty, doesn't have the maturity, doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the skill, doesn't have the guidance, the temperance, the patience, the maturity. And that's exactly what we were as we were young in our evolutionary growth on this world, when these beings decided to rebel and dupe all of us. That's why you get baby in the word Babylon, because mankind has been kept within this baby-like mentality. We're all, in a sense, bombarded with this supposed high potential, but in reality, the way that they've given us to achieve it only allows them to achieve their potential by the deception that they've given us. So there's so much more to say, but you should just simply realize that you are going to see exactly as I foretold, that this god Enki will be promoted. Somebody quoted the other day that Obama said he's going to step down after another 3.5 years. Wow. Obama's given us a big clue. And at the same time, he just slapped in the face all of these thousands of YouTube channels and all these thousands of YouTube so-called prophets that have been saying God told them explicitly that Obama was the Antichrist. Obama don't believe he's the Antichrist. He is already stating that he's going to step down for the rule of another. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So, the old saying, who's got eyes to see? Look, you got the eyes to see the secret encoded message? Do you understand that a huge corporation that uses slave labor and sordid practices is promoting this Enki god as king? They're not upright. They're not spiritually true. So how do these people that now want you to believe that Enki, and they're going to start coming out more in the open now, in the open, just as Jakari 73 is. He's already starting to promote this girl named by the name of Enki 35. I judge her not. If she believes that Enki is this great lord, go for it. If Jakari 73 believes it, go for it. Don't cower any longer. If this is your truth, stand up and profess it. Jesus Christ is my truth. I stand up before all of y'all and profess it. As many have before me, and who have been stoned and killed and slandered, mocked, stalked, and it's happening to me right now. And I am continually trying to show you guys, to the best of my ability, that the truth is everywhere you look. It's all around you. It's right here in front of your face. So Nike, this ancient goddess of war and victory, if you were to look if you were to look very diligently through multiple sources, that once again it's an overlapping of the same ideologies. Here comes a very short train. Hold on. So you know what you could do? You could just simply go to the Nike website and you could probably punch in this shirt right here and bring it up. Some of you that better got computers. I've only got this phone here. Some of you got better capabilities. If you're true and you do put videos on your channel and you got a little bit of courage, it'd be nice to see this logo come up with these understandings with it so that people can see. You can even just take what I've said here and then apply it to the image that you post on your channel. I've got no problem with that. Many people who don't even like me post my videos up, so I certainly ain't gonna have a problem with somebody posting the video that is gonna hope to show this truth here. All right, there was probably a lot more that I wanted to say and convey, but to keep the video short, you should understand that, okay? Let me take a moment and read this real fast. Samyeza saw a maiden named Istara and lost his heart to her. She asked to be taught the secret of heaven. Once she found out, she ascended to heaven, becoming the queen of heaven, and took her place among the 7 stars. Pleiades, Draco the serpent, and then we know that the Pleiades is associated with the 7 chakra, and then even more importantly with his supposed Nordic race. But this is pulled from ancient writings. It's an excerpt from the story of the sons of God in Genesis as they have taken unto themselves the daughters of men. It will fulfill exactly what I told you guys is truth, that this Ishtar, sacred feminine goddess ideology has stemmed directly from the root act of these fallen ones taken unto themselves the daughters of men. Thus, the Ishtar, Venus, sacred feminine philosophy is born upon our world, and which is still deceiving many to this day. Google Venus figurine, and you will see this depiction that can be found practically all over the globe in ancient times of this huge, obese woman with these developed breasts, this huge buttocks, basically overweight. And this is the depiction of the cow. They're depicting our women as birthing vehicles, birthing cows to produce these Nephilim, so-called giants, into our world. That's the only thing they are seen for. If you were to go back in some of these depictions, they'll even show, I can't remember the exact name of her. It's Lady of the something, but it's another depiction of this Venus, Ishtar goddess. You've probably seen it. It's an ivory statue. She's got multiple breasts, not just 2 on her stomach, but multiple teats. And guess what's sucking off of them? Wolves. Just like a female wolf or a female dog has multiple breasts along her belly, they're depicting wolves sucking off her breasts. And then we could fulfill further the words of Jesus Christ in John chapter 10. And he recounts these wolves perfectly towards the middle of that chapter. So, as I'm teaching you guys correctly here, the sacred feminine associated with Nike, associated with Ishtar, is all about the deception of mankind, deceiving the daughters of men to produce them as these birthing vehicles, these holy cows. Where do we get holy cow from? because really cows weren't really too holy. But if you put it in perspective of these females being seen as sacred to produce these Nephilim, then you get the depiction of where holy cow comes from. There's so much more I can show you guys, but let's not forget the Iraqi dinar with this depiction that goes all the way from Utu Shemesh, Marduk, to Enki, Lord of the Flowing Waters. And then there we have his symbolism of the dragon, the Mashushu dragon, with the uni horn on his head, which is completely synonymous with Israel itself and its depictions. There we have, once again, the seven stars, Draco, Pleiades, and right above the head is the symbolism for Ishtar. Ishtar, Enki, and then here we have Nike, Enki, Nike, Enki. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Using this opposition of duality to achieve this distortion, to create the shift so that they can bring in their king. He ain't my king. I'll be back.